Hi, Louise.
Hi,
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Yeah, if you could just tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be having this conversation with me.
Okay, so my name's Dr. Lou, or informally Lou, and yeah, I'm an academic and a psychologist, and also like a human rights activist in Australia, and I live in Cairns, which is in Queensland, and yeah, basically I've been doing psychology for about 20 years now, and I originally had a um, wanted to be a teacher, like when I was a young kid. And so then I went on to uni and ended up teaching psychology at uni while I was doing my PhD. But then during my PhD, I ended up having psychosis myself. And so that's sort of how I ended up like working in mental health, going through the recovery of my own psychosis. And then, yeah, so then I ended up becoming a psychologist after that. And so now I'm sort of doing a combination of both of my dreams, which is to help people, in crisis and recovery, but then also to teach, be a teacher and teach psychology. So, and then that's how we met because, yeah, I've kind of in the last year taken that to social media platform. Not intentionally, I actually just joined to see what was going on in the world. And then I started sort of sharing like little bits of the psychology stuff, writing little threads on Twitter. And then, yeah, over the course of a few months, people took an interest and then asked for a blog and asked for a website and things like that. And then when you approached me, I thought, I need a website. Then we made then I made the website Trauma Informed World, and that at the moment is really cool. Like I get to see every day, how many people are going on the site, which countries they're from, and it's so lovely to see, because if you look at it in a day, I could only see 5 people, like as a psychologist, and to have, to go on the website and it's got, like 80 or 150 people a day are looking at it, and 30 to 50 people while I'm asleep. Like I can't express how happy that makes me that people are learning this stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah, and obviously you're incredibly passionate, and that's quite easy to tell
yeah,
from meeting you and from
yeah,
having spoken to you. Just going back to a little bit about your own experience,
mm.
what helped you on your journey?
I think I think, well, because my first psychosis took 3 years to recover from. So I think yeah, like looking back now, like a trauma-informed framework, it really is so vital. It doesn't matter what the type of, you know, like if someone's experiencing mental illness or addiction or some form of injustice, for example, yeah, just having a trauma-informed framework where you're working with that individual, like at wherever they are at. So in the beginning with my psychosis, like my recovery, like I'd lost all the capacity to function and I couldn't hold a conversation properly. And then even before that, like I was sort of terrified of the world and, like had really horrible negative, or we call them positive symptoms, but they feel negative. So you've got to, yeah, like I just think having the support around me during that time for what were the things that I needed for each stage of that recovery. So for example, like, hospital, a lot of people think you're going to go to hospital and get fixed, but it doesn't really work that way. Like hospital is more about safety and stabilization, which is part of trauma-informed care. Like, so that's primary, which is to make sure this person is safe, get them stable. Sometimes medication is important, like in that aspect of it. And then sometimes it might not be, but yeah, so I found that really helpful. And then also like once I was safe and stable again, because of my psychosis, I couldn't do the things that I was able to do before. So I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't, like there was no way I would be able to do a 7-hour day or anything like that. So the psychiatrist that I had at the time, she was brilliant. She just said, look, why don't you go do Meals on Wheels, 2 hours a day? And because I was quite scared of people back then, and I was scared of the community, like society and stuff like that. So she kind of, had that as a strategy to get me back in a safe environment. Old people are not, so scary. Drop the meal off, just say hello, not a lot of cognitive, like I didn't have to do anything too complicated for my brain at the time, which there was no way I would be able to do complex tasks at work and things like that. And then, yeah, just that sort of 3-month period of doing something like that also not only gave me the confidence that I could do it, but it gave me that window back into the world, like into the community. And then we sort of went on from then to do like support work. And then my best friend, she's a psychologist, she asked me to work at the mental illness fellowship because they needed an education coordinator for their organization there, which was just about to become trauma informed at the time. And I was terrified. I was like, no, can't do it. Like, I'm scared of the world. Professionals are scary. And then she said, no, you need to. They need someone with the, psychology degree, the education and the lived experience. So yeah, it took that leap, which it is like, it's a huge leap when you're in recovery and it's terrifying, but it was the best thing I ever did because I got to then go and do what we call this living proof program. And that was to just go to all the high schools, share my story of recovery, normalize mental illness, like it's not as weird or taboo as we think it is, and then just like having an inspiring story for recovery. And then from then, like I think one of the difficulties with recovering is you recover along the way, and so it's hard to get that movement happening. And so it needs to be incremental, and that's what trauma-informed care is about. Like, it's working with that person wherever they are, that safety and stabilization is primary, and then giving them like the trauma-informed tools to be able to empower them to go into more challenging environments. So
and obviously that first psychiatrist who you spoke about, was incredibly trauma-informed in being able to attune to where you're up to. But you've, moved on from then as well, as you say, with different steps, because you're now engaging with the world. So
I know.
So what have been, so how do you sort of keep yourself grounded these days? And, how have you sort of moved further in that journey?
I think people need to learn more about the positive aspect of psychology. We got taught throughout history is the negative sort of things in psychology and psychiatry, and there's a lot of like labeling and pathologizing and looking at things from this view. And I think once you really look at psychology like with clarity, things like positive psychology, things like post-traumatic growth, things like wisdom traditions, all the wealth of wisdom that we know from all around the world, which was almost, we were not allowed to study stuff like that, when I went through uni. So I think when you look at how far psychology has come and psychiatry has come to the point of trauma-informed care now, that becomes like your protector, like, so when you don't know what's going on in the world and you don't understand the environments around you, and all you see is just all this like injustice and trauma all the time, that's frightening. It's terrifying for anybody. So I think psychology is so valuable when people learn, under the just basic understandings about yourself, and also having this sort of, we look at the history of psychology, and it used to be more focusing on like the illnesses in people, and then we got shame and stigma and punishment and all these things, associated things that ended up happening in society as a consequence of that. And then we had like the neuroplasticity, which was, no, your brain can change, and it's constantly changing, and you can heal. Like, things are not permanent in the way that we thought they were, and you can participate in that if you understand like a tiny bit about yourself, and you have the support around you to be able to do that. And I think once you not only learn that, but then you lose your own, like having a psychosis, and you do lose your whole world, and then you rebuild it back again. You really believe it because it's a reality, and then you see it in your work every day. And trauma-informed care is so key to be able to do that, because it's not focusing on the labels as much, that you definitely need a label. Like, you don't need a label, but you need to understand the difference between anxiety and depression, for example, to be able to help the person, to meet them wherever their need is. But trauma-informed care goes beneath that, like it's beneath your name or your age or your gender or your culture or nationhood or religion or anything like that. And it's returning to, life itself, which we all are, and going back to like, survival and safety and getting that person safe. And then, are you in reality or are you lost in your imagination? And then getting that person to have some clarity. And then in terms of the way that we are interacting in the world, like are our interactions helpful or harmful? So these are so simple, but like you would transform the world if we really followed them.
Yeah,
and
well, you're on the path.
No, but that's where today, like,
Yeah,
you say,
totally.
how did I sort of get to be able to be doing what I'm doing today? I think like there's a beauty in madness. Like once you've lost everything, you've got nothing to lose. So that's one advantage. So you look at Grace Tame, like these people are unstoppable because they've already lost everything, and then when they come back, that's post-traumatic growth. So that's a beauty. I always say to people, love is on the ground. Like, so don't be afraid if you fall down, like love is on the ground. And once you connect to that inside yourself, like now you're operating from a trauma-informed mindset. And you can't really fall down. Like you can fall down, like people will pick you up. There's enough beautiful people in this world. I see it every day on Twitter. Like I'm blown away by how many beautiful people in this world actually want change. Like, yeah, so.
Yeah, no. Do you want to talk about the work you're actually doing and how you infuse those, your trauma-informed work into the work on the ground that you do?
Yeah, so basically what I do is very simple with the clients that I work as a psychologist, and then I also share it as an educational resource on Twitter and the website and Facebook. But it's sort of following that, there's a three-phase approach with trauma, and we've got like sort of safety and stabilization, and then there's processing and then integrating. So I don't do any processing in terms of, I wouldn't be on a social media platform as a psychologist. That would not be appropriate. But I definitely share the tools, like the trauma-informed tools, and then also the framework. What is trauma-informed care? And if people wanted to, had much more like complex traumas and things like that they need like a therapist or somebody to be able to resolve that with, then there's also links for people to go and get that support that they need, and that people can, go to their nearest support places to be able to get trauma-informed care, like your website, Blue Knot, perfect example. But in terms of what I'm doing, just sort of sharing trauma-informed tools with individuals so that they can have that stability and a sense of which you have in your body, right? So your body only wants health and safety, and if it has that, it will be stable. And the same with your mind, like your mind needs clarity, and when it has that, it will be peaceful and joyful. And we know with our heart, that's like sort of follows the mind in that sense. So that's when we have like love and compassion, and then the ultimate is like what they call blissfulness and ecstasy. So that's sort of enlightenment that they would talk about in India and other cultures. So I feel really lucky in terms of learning about psychology, but also being very passionate about other cultures, what they do, like Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, or, India's got a very rich history and spirituality and things like that. And I always sort of compared, like, what are they doing? So I keep that in the back of the mind, of my mind as I was learning. And it's got to the point now where I can understand that there's all these systems around us. We talk about a system being broken, right? And we forget that there's so many beautiful systems around us. Even our body is a system, and that's what trauma-informed care is. It's making your system, like in sync with life rather than against it. And the same, with martial arts, with yoga, traditional dance. Like if you take a closer look at these things, they actually are trauma-informed. So all I do with my work is give people the tools, like of, how can we tell if we're in our threat system or if we're in our peace system? So the threat system would be that fight, flight, freeze, collapse, which is really important for danger. But if there's no danger, right in front of us in this moment, in this interview, then, we're probably, if we are in that state of like threat, then we're going to be either in like anxiety, or we might be in depression. And so I like people to know that all that means is we're in the wrong system, like, because when was the last time you had a life and death threat?
Yeah.
Like, you ask people, they can't even recall, even though the world is like a total mess at the moment. Like there's threats everywhere. But if you ask them, when was the last time you had a life and death threat? They go, oh, like never. It's like, why is your threat system going, crazy? And it's because we're responding to all these threats that are around us, right? Which is not a bad thing. It is, it's natural that we would be doing that, but our threat system is really for life and death situation in this immediate moment, because I'm much more helpful to the world if I'm in my peace system, which is, we call it, that's like your social engagement system, but I like to call it the peace system so people can understand it a little bit easier. But if you're peaceful and joyful, like, you're not going to harm anybody. And but if you're in your threat system, which we look at our leaders at the moment, they want to buy submarines, they want to go to war. Like, they're not talking about all of us getting along and like, becoming trauma informed. And
so what do you do to keep yourself in your peace system?
So you've got your playground is the body and your mind and social connection, what we're doing now. You've also got culture and country and spirituality. So I know very clearly in my mind, this is my playground. Like, this is what I can work with, not what society's telling me what to do, not what our leaders are telling us to do. You need to follow the laws. Please follow the laws so you don't go to jail.
Yes, probably a good idea.
So there's certain things that we might not agree with, but there's systems in place that we do have to follow, otherwise we get in trouble. Yes. But in terms of what's trauma informed, I know that that's my playground, and so I work with that. So with the body, like, your body just wants food, rest, water, some movement, things like that. Your body doesn't care what you look like. Your body doesn't care how skinny you are or how pretty you are, and that's a threat to us. Like, I had anxiety for years about what I look like, about how I'm not skinny enough, all this stuff where like, I wasted years of my life where I would be sitting on the most beautiful beach in the world and I can't enjoy it because I'm worried about how fat I am. Like, that's being in the wrong system. Like, you want to be in that peace system where you go, wow, this is beautiful. Look at the water, look at the sand, look at the the sunset, or things like that. So it's really practical. It's not just like for people think it's just for people with trauma. It's not for people just with trauma. It's like your life, like, so that you can really be thankful and grateful for what is happening around you, like the beauty of life as well. So that's the body's one, and then the mind is what I've already sort of talked about, that threat system and peace system. And also Dr. Kristin Neff's self-compassion is really amazing, getting people to switch out of their self-esteem, which is about being special and above average, and I've got to be better than you to be like worthy, or things like this, which is really not sustainable. And we can see that today being played out because we had this self-esteem movement for a few decades now, where psychologists thought the hallmark of our psychological well-being was self-esteem. And if you love yourself, you feel good, and if you hate yourself, then you feel terrible and you want to sometimes even die. But the problem with that self-esteem framework is that we end up pushing ourselves up and putting other people down, and only one person can win. So Dr. Kristin Neff's research is just so beautiful. It's switching from self-esteem to self-compassion, and self-compassion is about kindness, common humanity. So what do we have, that connects us rather than what's dividing us, which in Australia, we need that more than ever today. And then the last one is mindfulness. Mindfulness is, well, I cannot speak more highly of mindfulness. The Dalai Lama said, love is the absence of judgment. Right, so technically mindfulness is love.
That's a pretty bottom line.
And it's very hard, to sometimes we think things are things that they're not, or what we think is the opposite of what it is. And I think that's hard. You know, it takes life and experience to get your head around these things. And that's why, you know, if people, we don't need to understand everything. I don't understand everything. And I want people to know that you don't need to understand every single thing in life. You just need to know what works, you know, like, and trauma-informed care and trauma-informed tools work. Like, you know, they keep you safe, they give you clarity, they help you to develop a sense of stability, and they also get rid of all the noise in the world. You know, there's so much misinformation out there, what works, and everybody's trying to sell you something. Like, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. It's it's just, you know, understanding yourself better so you can make that decision for yourself. Like, what do you want to do with your life? And 9 times out of 4, it does end up helping people, because you realize we're all connected. Yeah,
we all should be, at least. I know you went to a Blue Knot training. Do you want to talk about that?
Blue Knot training is great. So if you are worried about the credibility of the stuff that I'm sharing, I'm using the training from Blue Knot. Like, it's excellent. So I could not speak more highly of the training. And just to give an example, you know, like when I went through uni, we weren't taught about trauma. We weren't taught about this stuff. So even a psychology degree, and you know, like, not even taught like about trauma-informed care in that way. And even if you do a psychology degree, because it's about normal human behavior, if such a thing exists, mental illness was only like one subject, or like an elective subject. So in terms of, like, as an example, you know, when we did learn about like mental illness, it was, again, like I said before, what's sort of wrong with it generally, what's, you know, like the different types of mental illness and all this kind of stuff, which has its place, definitely has its place. But trauma-informed care was, you know, a breakthrough for me when I was in your training. And I just remember being in your training, and the teacher was saying, you know, like, even addiction is a survival skill, you know, like, it's not a bad thing. Like, even our mental illness is a strength, you know, like, it's us just doing the best that we can to survive. Like, it's your best skill until you learn a better skill. And just to hear those words, like, to hear like no matter where you are in this moment right now, that's your strength. Like, it's not this weakness in you, it's not a limitation in you, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just doing the best that you can until, you know, you learn something that is a bit more helpful than harmful, going back to that helpful, harmful. And I think for me, like, it really gave me that confidence that I needed to, I think we all intuitively know all this stuff, like, but then we get taught the opposite in a lot of different, you know, or society models the opposite. And the Blue Knot training, you know, like, it's just so good, because it shows to you, no, this is actually how your system works. And if you want to, you know, like, recover, or you want to get, you know, like, the best out of your life, or to be able to heal trauma or things like that, then these are the tools that are going to help you to get that stability and that clarity and connection and belonging and all that kind of stuff. So the training was amazing. Really good.
And obviously you've taken that training, and you're now, you know, you've now got your own platform, and you're taking that forward, and it's amazing.
I mean, I've got you guys on the website because, you know, like, these are big topics, they're big questions, and they cover so many different, you know, like, types of mental illness, or different types of injustice, or, you know, even climate change, or the pandemic. And that's the beauty of trauma-informed care. Like, it kind of connects everything all together. And I'm sort of been trying to say that. And I think a lot of people are starting to make that connection, which is really good to see, because if we're all disconnected, if we're all these isolated units, then we're helpless, you know, like, we're powerless. And that's my only criticism of the traditional model of psychiatry is, you know, like, we're all sort of like isolated in whatever our label was. Whereas I've noticed in the last 10 years, like, this word trauma keeps popping up more than mental illness now today, in my experience. And there's a few people that are really pedantic about it, and they say, no, this is trauma, you know, this is not trauma. And, you know, because there's different types of trauma, and I respect that. And I completely do respect that. I honor that. But I also think the word is being used in a way that's sort of connecting everybody together again as well. And I don't necessarily see that as a negative thing, because there's no denying that our current like system that we're all sort of connected to, you know, like it is, you know, filled with different types of injustices and, you know, filled with, you know, the pandemic that we have at the moment. People are losing their jobs, people are losing their homes, people, you know, are experiencing either trauma or they know people that are experiencing trauma. So in that sense, I think it is a good way to be able to connect people back again and to not just focus on, okay, well, what is that? But what are the solutions to it? And that's all I want people to know. Like, you know, you go on Twitter and you just see all the injustices and all the different types of corruption that are happening all the time. And then you see like there's solutions as well, you know, like, but what if we did this? Yeah. So
what's your vision and how do you think people can get involved and engaged? What do you think, you know, someone listening can contribute?
I think it's the most incredible time to be alive, really. Like, you know, it is overwhelming, you know, for a lot of people. But if you look at the world today, you know, everybody's pretty much on the same page when it comes to truth, because truth is truth. So you can't argue with it, whether people say it is or not. And what I mean by that is, like, generally people that are trauma informed, they want people to be safe, they want people to be healthy, they want people to have education, you know, like they want people to have freedom, they want people to have, you know, opportunity, not just to be in survival mode, which is their threat system, but to be thriving, you know, which is that peace system. So this language is so applicable to the current events that are happening in the world today. And if you look around in Canada, for example, people like Dr. Cathy, he just made a movie called Wisdom of Trauma. Millions of people have watched it. They all relate to it.
I mean, he is quite remarkable, isn't he? He's just, just has a wonderful presence.
He got Order of Canada for his work. Like, he's an expert in trauma and addiction, and his work with First Nation Canadians. So, you know, even in Australia, like, our treatment of First Nation Australians and refugees, like, it's just not okay. It is barbaric. Like, it's 2021, and we've got these solutions. We know what works. And so I think the vision is a trauma-informed world, and because, you know, it's not something that's like a label that's going to replace everything or anything like that. It's underneath all of what we're doing, you know, like, you know, and you look at people like Greta Thunberg, she's just unreal at the moment. She's, you know, smashing leaders with climate change. And even yesterday she said, you know, climate change is just a symptom of a deeper issue, which is inequality, you know, that's dated back to colonization and things like that. So young people can see the connections today. Young people can connect the dots, like, and that's being trauma informed, you know, like, not just looking at the symptoms of things like, oh, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, I've got an addiction, so you need to go to jail because you broke the law, because you used an illegal drug, for example. You know, young people can see, and older people can see, you know, what's going on here, like, why, what's the pain underneath that, what's the reason underneath that. And that's what trauma-informed care is, you know, like, getting that person safe. They might not have anywhere to live. They might not, you know, or they might have just had their heart broken, or they might have had an injustice happen to them. So the vision is, like, just a trauma-informed world, which is already happening, you know, like, I can see it happening, which is why I think my contribution has been received so well, because I'm not really creating anything new. I'm just trying to bring together all these people around the world that are doing such an amazing job. And like you guys, like Dr. Cathy, like Greta, like, there's so many different people that are doing this already. And just rather than it all being so disconnected, you know, to just look at that common, what's the common element in this? You know, like, they want truth, you know, they want to just live in an honest, fair world that's safe, which is what trauma-informed care is all about. And like, and to, I guess, address injustice, which is long overdue, because we know how deep justice is, you know, connected to being well. And so in terms of that, the website that's the whole intention of the website. It was written that way, where I haven't put too much in there, and I'm not updating it because I don't want it to be something that is you know, like, oh, here's a photo from today and tomorrow and the next day. I want it to be like a free educational, you know, trauma-informed, like sort of toolkit, like an intro to trauma-informed care, and where you can go. So there's a link to you guys for that more, you know, like professional help or support and things like that. But just to see where we've come from, you know, like psychology or psychiatry to now, it's the most incredible time to be alive. We know what works. We've known, you know, the only thing missing is the political will, and we don't need to wait for that, because you can see that young people are doing it anyway. Not just young people all around the world, you know, are being trauma informed without even realizing that they're doing it. And then, yeah, just, I guess, helping. What I want to do is sort of like facilitate that process a little bit, you know, like give them the tools so they can tell the difference between, you know, when they're in their imagination or reality, or, you know, if it is dangerous, go get safety. You know, if it's not dangerous, then you don't need to be, you know, kind of like having this imagination going wild where we get stuck in that trauma again. And then ways to, I guess, enhance our perception of reality so that we've got that clarity and we feel that connection and that love and sense of belonging and things like that. Because when we are in that state, like, you know, you can see me now, like, all I want to do is just help everyone. Like, I don't want anything. I don't, when you're well, you don't really want much. Like, you just want like other people to be well as well, and to, you know, have like the opportunities that you were able to have. So, yeah.
So Louise, that's amazing. Thank you. And thank you for, you know, everything you're doing, your generosity and just your honesty and your connection. It's just amazing. And
no, thank you for
anyone can help build a trauma-informed world, I'm sure.
It's already happening. You guys, that's the beauty of it. You know, it's not it's more just everybody keep doing what you're doing. You're all doing amazing, and just use this as your protector, you know, like, because you asked what helped me recover. Your protectors are what's going to help you recover, you know, like that whole body, mind, and trauma-informed care is such a protector, because you know what you need and you know what you don't need, and you just do that. You keep it simple. Keep it simple. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Louise. Thank you so much for your time, and really
thank you so much for everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye.